weeks ago we were down at Goodwood for the Festival of Speed and it was mental. Like some of the cars that were on display and going up the hill were crazy. The list of drivers was more nuts than it has been before as far as I could tell. And it was also very muddy because the weather had done, it's basically classic England. The weather was crap. It was a very good weekend and this is kind of my guide as to what to go and see if you haven't been to Goodwood before or if you were there, because the breadth of machinery was incredible. So first of all, it starts off with something called the Moving Motor Show, which is on the Thursday. So Festival of Speed is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then a few years ago they added in the Thursday as the Moving Motor Show. So it's a chance where ordinary people, anyone, you know, like me basically, can have a go in a car up the hill. I was there to drive the Abarth 124 Spider and the Ford Fiesta ST200. First of all, it was the Ford, and first impressions, it's a very different car to the normal ST. The extra power really helps it, and it makes a really good noise. The exhaust is really, really good. I think now if you were going to buy a normal Fiesta ST or an ST200, surely you'd just buy the ST200. The standard ST I think has got 160, 170 horsepower, and yet the ST200, as the name suggests, has got 200, and it makes a difference. The gearbox is really nice, the steering's quite nice. It just feels a very different car to the standard Fiesta ST. I liked it. The next car I drove was the Abarth 124 Spider, and very different car to the Fiesta. Obviously it's rear-wheel drive, two-seater, and with it comes a bit more responsibility, because when I got in the car it was soaking wet. The rain had started to come down even heavier than it was before, and to make matters worse, my co-driver was a guy called Martin Donnelly. So driving a car I'd never driven before in the soaking wet with a former Formula 1 driver in the car, mildly intimidating, not gonna lie. Car was good fun, pulled well, turbocharged engine, it felt pretty good. I need more time in it, obviously. Again, just driving up the driveway, you don't learn a huge amount about a car, but the gearbox was nice, the exhaust made some funky noises, and the engine pulls really well. It's quite a different engine, obviously because it's turbocharged, to a Milestone X5, so yeah, enjoyed it. What you tend to do at Moving Motor Show then is walk over a bridge that goes over the start-finish line into an area where it's essentially show stands for the car companies, different people that are, selling books, all that sort of stuff. It's a place where manufacturers can look after guests and show you their new cars. So Audi, I think, probably had one of the biggest stands. They had at least 50 cars on their stand. Next up on my tour of Goodwood was something called the Cartier Style Luxe, which is essentially a concourse. Some of the most incredible, just jaw-dropping concourse cars are here over the Goodwood weekend to be judged, to be shown in front of Goodwood House, and they are gorgeous. There was a Lamborghini Miura in like this beautiful green that was stunning, really, really gorgeous. If you're interested in classic cars, that's really one place where you need to go. It's the place where young people tend to flock to is a supercar paddock, and it's, as the name suggests, where all the supercars, all the modern, really fast cars assemble and then make their way up the hill on the Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, it's worth a look at the supercar paddock. It's a fun place to be in, slightly surreal as well. Away from the supercars and the newer cars, you can make your way to kind of the top paddocks. So this is where all the other cars that go up the hill, the race cars, the Formula 1 cars, the rally cars, all that sort of stuff, the bikes, they all assemble and they're all parked up and worked on. First up with the rally cars, ranging from the 1960s all the way through to Group B, and then up to today with the modern WRC cars. One of the cars up in that paddock was the Gobstopper 2, basically a 780 horsepower Subaru, and by the end of the weekend it managed to get the fastest time up the hill, a time of 46.2 seconds. I was standing at the side of the track during the timed shootout, and the way that car accelerated was nuts. I can't comprehend how someone can drive that quickly. Next to the rally cars there was a drag bike and a drag car, and it just made me realise how dangerous these things are. Like, the drag bike is an engine with some padding on it and two wheels at either end, and the drag car equally is an engine with a seat strapped to the back of it and a couple of spindly little bicycle wheels at the front, and then some monster, they look like tractor tyres with no tread on the back. Next up were the drift cars, and Nissan had their world record drift car there. So it was a Nissan GTR, essentially, with some weird steering system on it that allows it to get the slip angles that you need for drifting. I can't remember exactly what the record was, but I think it was something like 190 miles an hour. That was quite cool to see. Moving down the paddock even further, there were BTCC cars. Cool to see. One of them had an off, so they were kind of fixing the front wing with gaffer tape. And then next to all that were bikes. I quite often forget about bikes because bikes are not where my passion lies at all, really. But I can appreciate bikes, and there were just hundreds of them all lined up, all the guys in their leathers ready to go, warming the bikes up. All really, really, really loud. Then there were endurance cars. So Ford had brought along all sorts of GTs. They had a new Ford GT that won Le Mans, and they had the original GT40 that won Le Mans in 1967, and it hasn't been driven since the day they turned off the key at Le Mans. Why you wouldn't drive that thing, I don't know, but now, of course, the engine won't be able to turn on. It's crazy, but there we go. Porsche brought along the 919 hybrid that won Le Mans, and Toyota were there, bless them, with the TS050 that broke down on the final lap this year. And from endurance cars, moved to F1. F1 cars from the very first days of Formula 1 racing right up to the modern day. So Renault were there, Ferrari were there, Red Bull were there. F1 is always pretty well represented at Goodwood, and it's one of the few times when you really need to put earplugs in. They're so loud. There were loads of GT cars there as well, so from Aston Martin to Bentley, Porsche, McLaren, they were all there, alongside a whole range of BMWs from throughout the last 50 years really. So they had the bang up to date brand new BMW 2002 homage concept. They had a Z4 GT3, they had the V12 LMR from 1999 that won Le Mans. Finally, I think it's worth pointing out that Goodwood isn't just a car show. You don't get 120,000 people along, for a day if it was just a load of cars in a field. It's the atmosphere. There are famous faces and drivers. There are some of the best cars in the world. But there's food, there's music, there's all sorts. If you haven't been before, I urge you to go. You just need to. It's a must. Oh yeah, and there was one other thing. Gran Turismo were there this year, and they brought along simulators. One for the driver's paddock, where the drivers go and have their lunch and get their suits and helmets on and stuff, and one for the journalists, so where we go to sign on and then write our stories, and it's like our base for the weekend. Whoever was fastest across the whole 4 days, the whole Movie Motor Show and Festival of Speed weekend would leave Goodwood with a PlayStation 4. You'd win a PlayStation 4. Somehow, and I don't quite know how this happened, I won the PlayStation 4. I don't own a PlayStation. I don't really play games that often. I enjoy a bit of Forza every now and then at my friend's house, but apart from that, I don't have time really to play games, as silly as that might sound to some. But I won. I got a time of 1 minute 13.8 round Brands Hatch. We had to drive a lap of Brands Hatch in a Toyota TS030, and somehow I managed to win. There was a great fight between me and the guy who eventually ended up coming second place, who was from the Netherlands. It was less than a tenth between the two of us by the end of the weekend. That was fantastic, and I won a PS4, so yeah,